وما كان لها من سلطان إلا أن دعوتهم فاستجابتم لي فلا تلوموا أنفسكم We're good? Okay, give me 1 second. Okay. All right. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina wa Maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Due to scheduling, we had to do this arrangement. From next week, inshallah, we'll set it up differently, inshallah ta'ala. So it'll be more welcoming and everyone could participate equally, inshallah ta'ala. So be patient with us, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Allahumma inna nas'aluka hubbak wa hubba man yuhibbuk wa hubba amalin yuqarribuna ila hubbik ya arham. We did. Testing. Testing, 1 2 1 2. Testing, 1 2 1 2. Testing, 1 2 3. Testing, 1 2. Testing. We're good? All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So we're continuing with our tafsir of Surah Ibrahim. Absolutely beautiful surah. And I was saying in our last session that what's beautiful about the Quran is the imagery that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes you as each of the verses are coming. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pulling you into an imagination or wanting you to imagine and see a different depiction. In our last class, it was extremely beautiful because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about these moments on the Day of Judgment. These moments on the Day of Judgment where there's different groups that are arguing with one another. Because now they've reached this point of the Day of Judgment where the reality is becoming clear. They see the reality of everything they lived for. They see the reality of everything that they did in this dunya. And now because that reality is clear, the blame game is beginning. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm just going to go back a verse because you have to see the verses all in context of one another. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَبَرَزُوا لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا. It's the Day of Judgment, right? This day of Qiyamah, this day of standing before Allah. And He says, وَبَرَزُوا لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا. And everyone will come out on that day, out of their graves, standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَقَالَ ذُؤَفَاءُ أُولِي الَّذِينَ اسْتَكْبَرُوا. See, He says that in society, in humanity, there's two groups of people. There's the trendsetters and the people that follow behind them. And on the Day of Judgment, because each one of us had our own choices to make in life, everyone's choices had their own consequences. We should not be following anything except the prophets of God and our own understanding of what the prophets of God have brought. We can't say because that person said it, I'm following it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings this beautiful conversation. What's the conversation? وَقَالَ الضُّؤَفَاءُ. The weak people. Now the word weak here is referring to they weren't using their own intellect. They didn't think for themselves. Rather, they followed the trends. They'll say to those who were istakbaru, the ones who were the trendsetters, they were in charge. Everyone was following their pages, listening to their opinions. Inna kunna lakum taba'an. They will say, yo, we were following you in the dunya. Inna kunna lakum taba'an. We were following you. We were behind ya. Inna kunna lakum taba'an. فَهَلْ أَنْتُمْ مُغْنُونَ. Can't you help us from this punishment of God at all? We followed you in this dunya. Can you help us today? قَالُوا لَوْ هَدَانَ اللَّهُ لَهَدَيْنَاكُمْ. The people who were the trendsetters at the time, they'll say, if God had given us guidance, we'd give you guidance. And this is amazing. The scholars, they say, these people, they don't want to take responsibility. So what they're saying is, if it wasn't for the fact that God didn't guide us, if God had guided us, we would have guided you. But the reality is God didn't guide us. Habibi, it's not upon God to guide you. It's upon you to find the right way. It's upon you to look for the hidayah, to look for the guidance. So they say, قَالُوا لَوْ هَدَانَ اللَّهَ لَهَدَيْنَاكُمْ سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْنَا أَجَزِعْنَا أَمْ صَبَرْنَا مَا لَنَا مِن مَحِيصٍ. They say, all of them collectively, the ones who were followers and the ones who were the trendsetters. سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْنَا. The thing about this dunya, the Prophet ﷺ has taught us that difficulties are made easier in this dunya by sabr, patience. Patience gives us the ability to go through hardships a little bit. It allows us to deal with the hardships. The reality of akhirah, the reality of the hereafter, is no amount of sabr at all will lighten the difficulty. So what do they say? Sawa'un alayna am sabarna. It's easy for today, it's the same. Whether we are patient or whether we scream out of agony, it doesn't matter. Ma lana min mahis. There's no way out of this punishment that we're in right now. Now we go on to today's verses. Verse number 22 and 23 are the verses we'll discuss for today. Very beautiful verses. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had us looking at this conversation in the akhirah. It's the day of judgment. Everyone picture this moment. It's the day of judgment. And now because people see where they're going, they start blaming one another. But now the people that were following others, they realize these people we were following, we can't blame them because they were lost too. So now where does the blame go? The blame goes to shaitan. The blame goes all the way back to the devil because he's the one in the beginning that said he's going to misguide us. And so now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives us the conversation that's happening between the people who listen to shaitan in the dunya and shaitan. And so now they're in this dialogue. So look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pulling us through this dialogue on the day of judgment. And here's the thing. I said this last week. Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us about these conversations? So that we get in where we fit in. So that we are in the right conversations and not in the wrong conversations on the day of judgment. Meaning by learning these now, the question is, where will me and you be on that day? Am I going to be part of this group or the next group that Allah is talking about later on? It's for us to reflect on. That's going to be spoken about, but where will we be? So look at this next conversation. Verse 22, this is today's verse. وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ. And shaitan will say when everything has been decided already. Everything's done already. The people have gotten their judgment. There's a group headed to the gates of Jannah, and there's groups headed towards hellfire because of the decisions we made. And everything is already decided. وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ. And now everyone is coming up to shaitan that it's your fault. You're the one that got us at this position. It's your fault that we're there. The word qudiya in Arabic means decided. The scholars, they say this is the moment where everything has been made clear. Meaning tamyiz, everything is being separated out. The truth is being seen as truth and the falsehood as being shown as falsehood. One of the scholars, they say a dua that you should make is Allahumma arina al-haq kama hiya. Oh Allah, show me truth as it is. The reality is in the dunya, the falsehood and the truth look the same. On the bus, everybody's riding together. On the plane, everyone's riding together. But on the day of judgment, distinction comes. That's where the real first class is shown. And that's where the real business class is shown. On that day. Because here we're all together. There, nah. Because we didn't live the same. So the akhirah won't be the same. In the dunya, we're all the same. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ. And shaitan will say, لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ. When everything has been decided. And people are coming up to him, blaming him. It's your fault. It's your fault. لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ. What will they say? إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعَدَكُمْ وَعْدَ الْحَقِّ. They will say to shaitan, like, it's your fault. And he will say, no, listen to me. إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعَدَكُمْ وَعْدَ الْحَقِّ. God promised you a true promise. وَعَدْتُكُمْ And I promised you in something in the dunya too. فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ, but I'm breaking my promise. Here we have something deep Allah is telling us to focus on. This dunya and shaitan always promise us things. If I get this one more thing, I'm going to be good, yo. If I get that job, if I marry this person, I'm going to be good. I'll be fine. Once I marry this person, I'm going to be good. Everything will be gravy. Everything will be okay. What else does shaitan tell us? Oh, we got time, yo. You got plenty of time to do tawbah. You got plenty of time to be righteous. You got plenty of time to get on your deen. You got time. Promise of shaitan. Shaitan tells us you give poverty, what happens, yo? You give too much charity, you're going to be broke, bro. If you give charity, then you're going to be poor. Ash-shaytanu ya'idukum al-faqr. Shaitan promises you poverty. And you know what else shaitan tells us? Allah hates you. Allah is angry with you. Allah hates you. Allah doesn't like you. Who are you to go to the masjid? Who are you to go to a halaqah? Who do you think you are? Don't pretend it's Ramadan. Now you want to be pious. Who do you think you are? Shaitan. This is the promise of shaitan. What's crazy is when we hear these promises, are we able to counter that with the promise of God? Let me give an example. Shaitan says, you got all day to become righteous. What's the promise of God? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِذَا جَاءَ أَجْلُهُمْ لَا يَسْتَأْخِرُونَ عَنْهُ سَاعَةً وَلَا يَسْتَقْدِمُونَ. When your time comes, there's no delaying it, no bringing it forward. When your time comes, it comes. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. The only thing guaranteed is this moment you're living in right now. That's the only moment guaranteed. I'm going to get pious next year. I'm going to get righteous when I'm 40. Habibi, that's shaitan's promise. In this moment, shaitan, on the day of judgment, is looking at everyone that's with him. And he's saying, Allah gave you a promise. And I gave you a promise. Let's analyze those two promises. What about the promise that if I just get a little bit more dunya, I'm going to be good? All of us have that in the head. It's like, yo, if I just get, if I marry her, I'm going to be good, yo. You tell your boys that too, like, yo, I'm going to be good after that. Everything will be great. Or it's a job. It's a job. If I get that degree or that job, I'm going to be good. You know what? It's hard for me to explain this. But I've had conversations with people. And maybe you've had them too. I'm not unique. I've had conversations with people that seem to be at the top of the food chain. Top of the food chain. It doesn't get no higher, y'all. For me and you, it don't get no higher. And what's the conversation about? I could get there's another little like, and to me and you, it's like, yo, if I was there, I'd be good. What does the Rasul ﷺ tell us about this reality of ourselves? See, when it says, وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ, when he says Allah gave you a promise, you know what you got to remember? That promise comes on the tongue of Rasulullah. That promise comes on Rasulullah ﷺ when he says, قال الله قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. That's the promise of God right there. Because the Rasul ﷺ, he said, I don't speak on my own. What I'm saying is revelation. It's from God. So what does Rasulullah ﷺ say? When you get that next job, when you get that certain person in your life, you'll be good? No. The Prophet said something completely different. He said, لو كان ابن آدم واديا من الذهب. If you had a valley of gold. This is Rasulullah speaking to us. He says, if you had a valley of gold, and one hadith says, if you had two, everyone in their mind's like, I'm good, yo. 1 Bitcoin, I'm good. Because gold is whack now, you know what I mean? Like, if I had that one, I'm good. Rasulullah said, he promised us, he said, you would just want the next one. You would just want the next one. And we've had the conversations with people in the top office. But shaitan tells you, no, there's more, there's more, there's more. Just a little more will be okay. What about poverty? Shaitan promises, you give too much charity, you're going to be broke. You give too much charity, no, you can't do that. If we were chill, if we were close with Abdurrahman bin Auf, or Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the day he came and gave all of his wealth, we would have gave the khutbah that completely went against it. Yeah, Shaykh, you're not supposed to give so much in charity, man. I heard the Shaykh say, you have to measure it out. What does Allah say about, what does the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam say about our wealth and charity? And then what does Allah say about risk? Two things I want to share with you. Beautiful verse. وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ. Your risk is in the heavens. You know what scholars say? You can't access it down here, yo. It's written up there. You don't got access down here to it. وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ. Your risk is up there. It's written already. The food you'll eat for iftar today, written. The drops of water. Sometimes, I told y'all, sometimes it's trip. Yo, sometimes I drink something, and when you drink, there's a little drop at the bottom. And who's sitting there like, no one does that. You drink and that's it. But then you put the cup down and you see little drops at the bottom. I think to myself, out of all the water in the cup, those however many molecules were not written for me. And there was no way on God's earth for me to consume that. وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ. In the heavens is God's risk for you, sustenance, and everything you've been promised. The scholars, they say, Allah says it's in the heavens because you can't get to it. And then Allah says, فَوَرَبِّ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِنَّهُ لَحَقٌّ. Allah in the Quran says, I swear by God. He's saying, I swear by me, this is true. That's His promise. That's His promise. Shaitan's promise, you're going to be broke. Allah's promise, I'm controlling your risk. I'm controlling risk. And what is another promise of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said, Sadaqah does not decrease your wealth. Shaitan has a promise. Allah has a promise. We hear both of them. Which one are we listening to? So look at this verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us that Shaitan will say, وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرِ. And Shaitan will say to the people who are pointing fingers at him, when everything has been decided already, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعَدَكُمْ وَعْدَ الْحَقِّ. This one who tricked me my whole life on the day of judgment, this one who played me my whole life on the day of judgment, what is he saying to me? God gave you a promise and it was true. It was true. وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ. And I gave you a promise. I gave you a promise too. But I break my promise. One of the scholars, he says, Allah's promise is true. This is deep. Hear me out on this, yo. Allah's promise is true because He promises in that which He has ownership over. Shaitan's promise is falsehood because he has no ownership over what he's promising. And when we promise, we always say, inshallah, because we too don't have any ownership over nothing. That's why Shaitan's promise is false. He has no ownership. But we too, we don't have ownership. So Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the Quran taught us, every time you promise, you say, inshallah, because I have no ownership over none of this. Think of it this way. When we talk about the promise of Shaitan, think of it this way. Every sin you engage in, there's a lie behind it. Every sin you engage in, there's a lie about it. Oh, I got to get to know her better because if I get to know her better, then the marriage will work. Nope, lie. I know people dating for 7, 10 years, they get married and it falls apart. Every sin you engage in, there's a lie behind it. Look at haram because they'll bring some peace to my heart. If I look at it, it'll bring peace. Lie behind it. It'll give you anxiety and more depression. Every sin, subhanAllah, there's a lie behind it. And if we understood that, if we see what every angry outburst, if I just release my anger, I'll be okay. No, you're going to be more upset after you release the anger. Behind every sin, there is a lie from Shaitan or from the nafs pulling us to that sin. And on the day of judgment, Shaitan is saying, God promised you. God promised you something, and I promised, and I'm breaking my promise today. So what does he say next? مَا كَانَ لِي عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ. Shaitan's still speaking to the people blaming him. He says, I didn't force you. I didn't force you. مَا كَانَ لِي عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ. I didn't force you. I had no power over you. You were your own individual. You had your own choices in life. You could do what you wanted to do. It was up to you. مَا كَانَ لِي عَلَيْكُم مِّن سُلْطَانٍ. I didn't make you do it. إِلَّا أَن دَعَوْتُكُمْ. Shaitan says, I just called you. I just called you. That's all I did. I just called you to the sin. I just called you to the haram. That's all I did. One thing that one of the scholars say, how do you know when it's your nafs versus shaitan? This is an important thing to understand. How do you understand when the sin you're being called to is your nafs or it's shaitan? One of the scholars, they said that shaitan doesn't care what action you engage in. So shaitan will keep jumping around to all types of different stuff. You know, he'll give you an idea and you go, A'udhu billah, no, I'm good. You do dhikr, do something. He'll jump somewhere else. He doesn't care what it is. But the nafs gets caught on something, is persistent on it. The nafs stays on one thing. It's like, no, I got to get that. No, I got to go after that. Shaitan is random thoughts. You're like, yo, where'd that come from? Shaitan. It's all over the place. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about the whispers of shaitan. He says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا إِذَا مَسَّهُمْ طَائِفٌ مِّنَ الشَّيْطَانِ تَذَكَّرُوا. How do we defend ourselves? He says the people of righteousness, when they are touched by shaitan, meaning a thought comes from shaitan, تَذَكَّرُوا, they remember Allah. Astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah. Here's the thing that a lot of us think the battlefield with shaitan happens in actions. It doesn't. It happens in the mind. Because the action is the last thing. He won. You know when you play chess, like some people are like 5 steps. They already know I got you a checkmate in 5 steps. I already know I got you in 5 steps. You can do what you want. It's already played out. The action is checkmate. The action is checkmate. But shaitan is playing chess with us because when he puts it in the mind, if you allow the mind to sit on it and play with it, shaitan's like, I already got you. You already got you. You're already set up. And so we have to be conscious that tadhakkaru, the moment the thought from shaitan comes, Allah says, the righteous people, what do? Tadhakkaru, they remember. They go, astaghfirullah. I can't think of that. Forget about the action. I'm not even going to think about that. Tadhakkaru. And then what happens when dhikr comes? Listen, this month is the month of dhikr. And dhikr is amazing because, you know what I heard someone say about Ramadan? Like the air is different in Ramadan, yo. The air is different in Ramadan. And there's a clarity that comes to the self in Ramadan that is never there. And I heard one scholar say, it's like when you dive into water and you're underwater. You can't breathe underwater. And the whole time you're underwater, you know you're still on earth, you're still everything, but I'm in a different atmosphere here. And after a little while, I'm going to come up and get some more air. Hakada Ramadan. Ramadan, you dive in. And we're swimming for these 30 days. And some of us, we have long breath. So after the 30 days, we're still swimming a little bit. Still swimming like, yo, it's nice down here, yo. You see that? Yo, you see that? Other people, the moment the month is over, like, yo, I need some air, bro. I need that dunya, yo. Woo! I need that daytime food. I need that dunya. Other people, the 6 days, they like, 6 days, I'm on it. Shawwal, 6 days, I'm on it. I'm swimming. I'm swimming. But it's different. The air is so different. Tadhakkaru, once they do dhikr, فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ. When they remember Allah, all of a sudden they see the truth. Oh, that's shaitan. Shaitan told me to wait. I can't wait because I don't know what's coming tomorrow. The dhikr brings clarity. That's it. The remembrance brings clarity. That's it. Tadhakkaru فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ. When shaitan comes and touches them, they remember Allah. Astaghfirullah. I'm not going to sit here and think about this. That's haram. Then when they do that, فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ. They see things as they are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, shaitan says, I was calling you. I didn't have control over you. I was calling you. I didn't have any control. All I did was call. That was my job. I called you. And then look what he says next. The conversation isn't over. He says, فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. He says, don't blame me. فَلَا تَلُومُونِي. Don't blame me. Why is shaitan saying, don't blame me? How can you blame him for doing what he said he was going to do before? He said from Jump Street, I'm going to attack this human being from every direction. I'm going to do everything I can to bring that human being down. Here's the deal.
Shaitan saw Adam given a position. And it ate him up inside. That why does he have this position? I'm supposed to have that position. So what's his objective? His objective with that position, his objective is to bring him down. Who? Me and you. His objective is to bring us down. What does that mean? Bi'idnik, please. His objective is to bring us down so that if he can't make us lower than him, he could at least make us equal to him. Because we were above him. So he goes, what can I do to destroy this human being? I don't have power to put him below me. But what can I do? I can make him be with me. So let me bring you down. That is why you have to understand, that's why the scholars, they would say, have respect for who you are. You are a son of Adam. You are a daughter of Adam. The angels look with you with what's the word? They look at you when we're engaged in worship. They admire. They admire us because you have desires, you have biological needs, you have this dunya, and despite that, you worship God. Despite that, you overcome your passions for the sake of Allah you never seen. How do you do that? They admire us. And so where Shaitan goes is, don't admire that thing. I'm going to show you how low that thing will become. I'll make that thing a slave to me. Are you a slave to Allah? Are you a slave to your passions? Are you a slave to Shaitan? Are you a slave to society? Are you a slave to work? What are you a slave of? You can either be a slave of God or you will be a slave of something in this world. That's it. So what does he say? He says, فَلَا تَلُومُونِي. He says, don't blame me. I did what I was supposed to do. You can't blame me for doing what I said I was going to do. وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. He says, blame yourself. You heard God's promise. You heard the talks. You heard the lectures. You heard the Quran. You heard God's promise. And then you heard my promise. And you just followed my promise. I just called you. وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ مَا أَنَا بِمُصْرِخِكُمْ. Look what he says. Remember I told you his objective was to make us equal? He goes, مَا أَنَا بِمُصْرِخِكُمْ وَمَا أَنْتُمْ بِمُصْرِخِي. He says, I can't help you, stop screaming, and you won't be able to help me, stop screaming. We're both in this together, meaning we're equal now. I accomplished my goal. You, son of Adam, are not honored. You are not the greatest of God's creation. You aren't the favorite child of the Father. No, you are like me. I brought you down. Share in this punishment with me. That's his objective. We're both together. And that's why over and over, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He reminds us. Shaitan will forsake us in that moment. He'll forsake anyone that was with him. But what doesn't forsake us in that moment is our righteous deeds. There's a hadith, it's so beautiful, and it fits so beautiful here. The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said when a person is on the Day of Judgment, their fasting and their Quran will come. As-siyam wal-Quran yashfa'ani lil-abd yawm al-qiyamah. In this moment, we just read the Quran that Shaitan forsakes you, forsakes the one who followed him. But what doesn't forsake us is the righteousness we did for the sake of Allah. The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said on the Day of Judgment, and I came across this beautiful hadith, and I want to read it to you. Powerful narration. Where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells us the reality of the Day of Judgment and everything happening there, and how the actions will be there. Listen to this hadith. The hadith says, إِنَّ الْأَبْدَ الْمُؤْمِنِ. When the believer dies and leaves the world, they begin to proceed towards the akhirah. An angel comes down, shining, bright, a face like the sun. And they bring this person a shroud from Jannah. And they sit down with this person. فَيُنَادِي مُنَادِي مِنَ السَّمَاءِ. A caller calls out from the heavens. أَنْ صَدَقَ عَبْدِي. My servant was true. Open up the doors of Jannah for this person. Open up the doors of Jannah for this brother, this sister who went through so much. قال. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, وَيَأْتِيهِ رَجُلٌ. A person will come up to you on the Day of Judgment. حَسَنُ الْوَجْهِ. Beautiful face. حَسَنُ الثِّيَابِ. Beautiful clothes. طيب الريح, the most fragrant smell. And this person will come up to you and say, Abshir, glad tidings, happiness is coming to you soon. Today's your day that you were promised. Remember, promise? The promise of God. Today's your day you were promised. Inna Allah wa'adakum. So the person on the day of judgment sees this person they never know. I don't even know who you are. You sound familiar to me. You're talking to me like you know me. Who are you? I don't even know who you are. So the person goes, فَيَقُولُ لَهُ مَنْ أَنْتَ? The person goes, who are you? Who are you telling me I'm going to be happy today? Your face is beautiful and you're giving me this good news. You're talking to me like you know me. Who are you? This person says, أَنَا عَمَلُكَ الصَّالِحِ. I'm your righteous deeds. I'm your righteous deeds, Habibi. Those days you spent fasting, Rasulullah ﷺ says that the fast will be a person and they will argue with God and they will say, Ya Allah, this person, I stopped him from food and drink. Let this person into Jannah. Your prayers at nighttime, this is hadith, it's sahih. Your prayers at nighttime will argue with God and say, Ya Allah, I stopped this person from sleeping at night. Let them enter into Jannah. This verse is telling us that shaitan will forsake us. The bad deeds, they forsake us in the dunya. Forget that. The bad deeds turn on you in the dunya. But the righteous deeds are there for you. And they never turn away. So he says, who are you? And this person is so beautiful. He goes, Ana amalu salih. Ana amaluka as-salihah. I'm your righteous deeds, man. I was with you the whole time. You worked on me, so I'm here for you. You worked on me, so I'm here for you. So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Shaitan continues. He says, Inni kafartu bima ashraktumuni min qabl. Shaitan says, I'm done. I deny you. I deny you today. And the fact that you created me as a partner with God. This is heavy. The verse is almost over. We're almost done. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Shaitan says to this person, I deny you today. Inni kafartu. I don't believe in you today. And I deny the fact that you made me a partner with God. Now wait, hold on. What does this mean? Why is Shaitan saying that those who listened to him made him a partner with God? The greatest crime in Islam is what, y'all? It's called shirk. It's to associate a partner with God. So why is he calling these people mushriks? And the reason is because the obedience is ibadah. The obedience to shaitan is a form of ibadah, worship of shaitan. I heard Shaykh Sha'arawi, he said this. It's a beautiful narration. I want you to listen closely. It's a beautiful narration. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Hadith Qudsi, Ya bana Adam, O daughter and son of Adam. Ya bana Adam, O child of Adam, me and you. In kuntum ta'taqiduna alla araka. If you think that I don't see you, فَخَلَلٌ فِي إِيمَانِكَ. That means you have a deficiency in your faith. وَإِن كُنْتَ تَعْتَقِدْ أَنِّي أَرَاكَ. And if you think that I can see you, فَلِمَا تَجْعَلْتُمُونِي أَحْوَنَ النَّاظِرَيْنِ إِلَيْكُمَا. And if you think I see you, then why have you made me the least significant of those who are watching you? Why have you made me the least significant of those who are watching you? We know God is watching us, but then we also factor in who else is watching us. And so Allah is saying to us, why have you made me the most insignificant watcher of you? Why does it matter more what a coworker thinks or a relative thinks or this person thinks? You know I'm watching. That should be enough for you. That should be enough for you. When I heard that narration, it shifted the paradigm, because how many actions do we do for other people? And anything you do for another person, you should seek your reward from the other person on the day of judgment. And so Shaitan says what? Inni kafartu bima ashraktumuni min qabl. I deny you today that you committed shirk with me. I deny you today. Inna dhalimina lahum adhabun alim. Indeed, the people of oppression will be in the worst of punishments. Now, I'm going to finish. We got one more verse, y'all, but I need you to appreciate the beauty of the Quran. The beauty for me of the Quran is how Allah switches the picture so smooth. The last verses from last week and today, we have been walking through the day of judgment. we have been seeing these people who are destined to the fire of hell arguing with one another, blaming each other. You can imagine, you've seen road rage, you've seen people angry at each other. Imagine the anger on the day of judgment at one another. Because this is eternity now. So Allah had us in this picture where they're arguing with one another. It's your fault I'm here. Why don't you help me? I couldn't help you because I didn't have guidance. Why are you asking me? And then Allah brings us to another debate, which is between Shaitan and the people. And everyone is angry at Shaitan, and Shaitan says, why are you talking to me? And all of a sudden, Allah switches in the next verse. Look at the next verse. وَأُدْخِلَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي. While the arguing is happening over there, it's as if the director shifts to another place. All of the arguing is happening over there. All of the fighting, all the bickering of the people of hellfire. Shaitan is talking to everyone who followed him. And then Allah takes us to another picture. In verse number 23, Allah says, I want you to see something else. While that's happening, I want you to see what's happening over there. وَأُدْخِلَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. And I'm allowing the people of Iman and righteous deeds to enter into Jannah. They're entering in. As they're entering in, their faces are shining. Nur, most beautiful clothes, jewelry like we never imagined. Walking into Jannah. And who's greeting us? The angels. The angels are there looking at everyone saying, Salamun alaykum tibatum. Salamu alaykum, O believers. We saw y'all in the dunya. You did good. Come on in. We saw you struggling in the dunya. Come on in. Salamun alaykum tibatum. Come on in. وَأُدْخِلَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. One of the scholars, he said, we were in a tight place. When we were looking at hellfire, our hearts were filled with fear. And Allah knows there's two ways to come to Him. Listen closely. There's two ways to come to God. Some people come with shawq, I want God. And some people need the fear. I'm afraid of hell. I'm afraid of displeasing God. So right after he brings the verses of fear, like this is what's happening in hellfire, he goes, I know some of y'all, you just have a longing for me. So what does he say? وَأُدْخِلَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. And I'm entering into paradise, the people of Iman. لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. And the people of righteous deeds. Where are they entering? جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا. They're entering into a garden. Jannah, under which rivers are flowing, lakefront properties, the best. Khalidina fiha, to dwell therein forever. Time, no more counting now. We're not rushing nowhere because time is eternal. Bi'idni rabbihim, only by God's permission. You know what? It's not your actions that got you Jannah. It's God's mercy that got you Jannah. That's it. If you think it's your actions, that's a bit of arrogance from you. It's only God's mercy. One time the Prophet, he said to the Sahih narration, he said, no one enters Jannah by their actions. The Sahaba, they said, Ya Rasulullah, wala anta? He said, wala ana illa an yataghammadani Allahu birahma. I won't enter into Jannah. It's only if God showers His mercy upon me that I enter. Bi'idni rabbihim. And then Allah says, tahiyyatuhum fiha salam. And in Jannah, everybody is meeting each other with the greeting of salam. Salamun alaykum, salamun alaykum. Salamun alaykum. Salam is coming from Allah. Surah Yasin. Salam qawlan min Rabbir Rahim. Allah is saying salam to us. The believers are meeting each other with salam. The angels are saying, coming in from min kulli bab. Salamun alaykum bima sabartum. Peace be upon you because you were patient in the dunya. Watching the clock as it got close to iftar. Patient in the dunya for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, I want you to focus now on Jannah. I want you to focus on being with Allah. What is Jannah? I'll end with this. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he described Jannah. And what did he say? He said, مَا لَا عَيْنٌ رَأَتْ وَلَا أُذُنٌ سَمِعَتْ وَلَا خَطَرَ عَلَى قَلْبِ أَحَدٍ. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, Jannah is what no eye has heard. Let me break it down this way. If there's a baby in the womb, imagine we could talk to a baby in the womb. Just imagine this. And you could tell the baby in the womb, yo, you got to come out, yo. You got to come out. It's time to come out. And the baby's like, nah, I like it here. I got ice cream on demand. I got Doritos on demand. I got whatever I want on demand. I literally just kick a kidney and I get what I want, yo. Yeah, I mean, I got everything on demand. You know, and subhanAllah, the little baby in the womb, He got dad driving to 7-Eleven at 2 a.m. Yeah, yo, your little man's got power in the womb, yo. So you tell this fetus in the womb, I'm going to end with this. You tell the fetus in the womb, you go, yo, bro, you got to leave. The fetus will go, I don't want to leave, yo. I like it here. You know how much space I got here? This is nice. This is nice, you know what I mean? This is nice. Right? But you tell the fetus, you go, nah, you don't know what's out there. There's oceans. Fetus is like, what you mean an ocean? You're like, nah, it's massive. It's like water. He's like, water? I'm in water. You're like, nah, it's beautiful. There's fish. Fish? What do you mean fish? There's mountains. There's a sun that you'll see the sun set and rise. You tell this fetus, the fetus is like, nah, I'm good here. One of the shuyukh, he said, leaving the dunya is like the fetus leaving the womb. It doesn't want to come. But Allah's like, you got to come because I want to show you what I have prepared for you. And the limitedness of our understanding in this world to akhirah is like the limitedness of the fetus and its understanding of what this massive world has. And it's only until you're forced into it that Allah says, now you see what I had prepared for you. But you could never imagine. Now you understand what I have prepared for you? And so when we think of that, just think of that fetus and how limited the fetus is understanding. They think they got everything. They got nothing. Allah says same thing in this dunya. You think you got everything? Wait till I show you what everything truly is. May Allah give us that Jannatul Firdaus. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين بارك الله فيكم جزاكم الله خير السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته